So we've officially reached the end of the first batch of Sonic Prime episodes on Netflix, and I've gotta say, I really wound up enjoying this show way more than I anticipated. However, there are still a few glaring issues that persist that were present in the prior seasons. But before I get too far ahead of myself, let me know down in the comments if you've watched the third season of Sonic Prime and what your thoughts on it as a whole are. I'll be getting into spoilers for this video, so this is your warning now. With that said, let's get into it. Season 3 picks up seconds after the cliffhanger of Season 2, where 9 had betrayed Sonic, taking the Paradox Prism to the Grim to build his perfect world. This starts the season off pretty strong, as we see Sonic finally come face to face with his failures, and it's apparent that it's pretty overwhelming for him. We're used to Sonic being able to save the day and make light of whatever situation that he's in. Sonic is always the optimistic character who without fail will find a light in the darkness, so having him face his failures and struggle with overcoming them was a fun idea that the show explored. What made this even better in my opinion was the fact that Shadow had to be the one to push Sonic through this tough time. Shadow and Sonic have played off each other extremely well in this show, and Season 3 is no different. Every time the two of them are on screen together, there's a chemistry between the two that I think is unmatched in any other form of Sonic media. I've said this before, but they give off Batman and Superman vibes in this show. Batman cares about his friend Superman and finds hope in him, but being the recluse that he is, he's never gonna show that to Clark's face. And Superman, in the same vein as Sonic, outwardly shows his compassion to his teammates. So every time these two are on screen together, I'm really excited to see what happens. Unfortunately, this is where we get into similar issues that the other seasons faced. Shadow gets sidelined once again in the premiere of this season and is absent until episode 5. I'm not sure why each season Shadow has been used so sparingly, especially when they've been nailing his character every time. I guess that in the grand scheme of things, it's just nice that his character has a meaningful impact every time we see him. This entire season, we have the looming threat of 9, as well as the destruction of all the shatter spaces to worry about, and I think that this really plays to the show's favor. Having 9 be this ever-present, all-powerful reminder of Sonic's failures makes for some interesting moments between characters. Instead of rushing in and thinking that he can do everything alone this season, Sonic has to take a step back and realize that he needs help, even if it comes from the most unlikely of places. With the worlds collapsing, we finally get nearly every character all grouped together. This felt like payoff for the first 2 seasons. Having all these different variants of Sonic's friends interact was interesting to say the least, and I thought that their interactions made sense. For instance, all the Amy variants end up becoming close friends and eventually form a sisterhood, which just feels so on brand for what would happen if a bunch of Amy's ended up meeting each other. But what I found more fun than all the variants interacting was seeing all the heroes team up with the Chaos Council. You know, whenever you team up heroes and villains, there's bound to be some conflict, and the show did a great job hamming up the tension between the groups while also showing them slowly learn to work together in order to secure their survival. Sonic even gets a good dose of inspiration from the Chaos Council. There's a moment while Sonic is with the Council and he makes a deal with them, agreeing to power their shields, which would save everyone currently under attack from 9, as well as from the collapse of the Shatter Space itself. The show builds this up as a risky deal which will end up taking a huge toll on Sonic, and as the episode ends, it appears that Sonic is in a very bad condition, despite telling his friends otherwise. And this is where another issue arises for me, because immediately in the next episode, Sonic appears to be completely fine. I'm not a fan of stories building up risks but seemingly having no consequences, and this is something that Sonic Prime seems to have an issue with, because there are quite a few instances where the stakes just seem to not matter. From episode 3 on out, the rest of the show takes place primarily on the Grim, and this is where season 3 hits what I believe to be its biggest issue. See, everyone arrives all working as a team to fight 9 and his forces, and this battle goes on till the very last episode. I mean, it is very drawn out, and while there are a ton of fun moments to be had during this battle sequence, like the Avengers Endgame reference and such, it's just too long. We see our heroes regroup and charge into battle about 4 times, and I am not exaggerating. I understand that this is made with a younger audience in mind, but I still imagine that even for a younger crowd, this had to have gotten a bit tiresome. Even so, there are great character moments interspersed between the action, like seeing 9 descend deeper into madness was great character-wise because you see how obsessive he is over Sonic during this battle, and he only gets angrier the more that Sonic interacts with his friends. We also see how much Sonic has grown as a character. Up till this point, his MO was go fast and go alone, but now we see a more mature Sonic, a Sonic who is willing to not just wait and listen, but also look to others for advice. I know some people haven't enjoyed this depiction of Sonic, but I think that Season 3 might sway some some people, as he comes across as a more mature character, and you can look back now and enjoy this little character arc that he went on. This very long battle in the Grim is back and forth constantly. Sometimes Sonic and his friends have the upper hand, then 9 will make a giant big robot giving him the upper hand, but wait, our heroes took it out. Oh, but it doesn't matter, 9 made a million more robots, he has the upper hand again. Like I mentioned earlier, it just drags on too long, and by having each side swap the upper hand, it makes it harder to get invested since the stakes never really seem to last too long. Things do get a bit more interesting upon Shadow's return, and we finally learn what Sonic's shoes do in the Grim, and I just gotta say that these are the coolest shoes that he's had across all 3 seasons. Not only is the design really appealing, but these shoes allow Sonic to deploy force fields which he utilizes in order to run on the air or block incoming attacks. Looking back across all the seasons, I will say that having his shoes and gloves change with each world was a fun gimmick that kept things feeling fresh. When we catch up with 9, he's siphoned too much energy from the Paradox Prism, leaving himself vulnerable to attack. Sonic uses this moment to his advantage as well as his new powers. Cornered and having nothing to lose at this point, 9 begins to accelerate the decay of the Shatter Space in a mutually assured destruction type move. This moment led me to believe for a second that there was no redemption in sight for 9. It really seemed at first that he was going to stay a villain and had nothing but hate left for Sonic, which we would find out later isn't the case, but the show did fool me briefly. Speaking of redemption, Knuckles the Dread has a moment of character growth that came out of left field but was super rewarding. Having played an antagonistic role in the prior seasons, motivated only by greed, we see a change of heart here. There's a moment during the battle where Dread is heading for the Paradox Prism to claim it for himself, when he notices that Black Rose is in trouble. Surprisingly, instead of acting on his selfish nature, he comes back to save his crewmate. It's just a little moment, but I'm all about character moments like this, and here the action actually serves a purpose to the story. Now, despite my complaints with the overabundance of action and some little nitpicks here and there, I very much enjoyed this show, and the final episode ended up being a great conclusion. After being defeated, 9 is surrounded by everyone, and despite everything that he's done and all the pain that he's inflicted, Sonic still gives him another chance to redeem himself and be a hero. This to me is what Sonic is all about. It's never too late for redemption, and you can always own up to your own mistakes. This show took its time, but they really did a fantastic job of building up Sonic's character to the hero that we're used to. 9 takes Sonic's offer, but in order to save the worlds, he has to extract the Shatter Space energy from Sonic, which could possibly end up killing him. Knowing the risk, he still agrees. Things begin to work, and the Shatter Space begins to repair, but Sonic this time is actually in a bad state and needs to get back to his world before he fades away. However, the Chaos Council sees this as the perfect opportunity to seize the prism for themselves, and I'm sure that we all saw this coming from a mile away, but we get one final battle to close out the season. Now, in my opinion, this was the best part of the show. Sonic is still in a bad state, so they're rushing back to the Shatter Space for Green Hills. It's evident that Sonic only has seconds left to live, and no mode of transportation is going to be able to reach the portal in time. Here we see the reluctant hero Shadow step up to the plate. He grabs his friend, and in one of the coolest sequences ever, saves Sonic right before it's too late. The show comes to a close the same way that it began in Season 1, with Sonic and his friends fighting Eggman over the Paradox Prism. However, this time Sonic works as a team with his friends, demonstrating that he's learned a lot while he was off on his journey. Time has hardly advanced, so this change in Sonic's attitude threw off his friends. In some ways, this reminded me of like The Wizard of Oz or Narnia, where Sonic and Shadow had been away on this adventure for such a long time and learned a lot, but nothing had changed yet in the main world. Shadow ends up joining everyone in the battle, but only to drop the coldest line,
"The ultimate life form. I go wherever I want,"
and then dip out with the Paradox Prism using Chaos Control. The last few moments of the show, Sonic tries to celebrate with his friends, only to be interrupted by some unknown adversary. It's possible that the Chaos Council found a way into his world, which would be interesting to have them meet the main Eggman, but it also could be something else entirely. This season ended up being a blast, even with the fights going on too long for my taste. I would have to say that in my opinion, this is the best season of Sonic Prime, and I would contribute that to the fact that the other 2 seasons built up the show pretty well, so that when we reached this apex, there was plenty of payoff. I do hope that we get more of this show, because I think that there is so much more that they could explore in the Prime universe. This show is far from perfect, but I do think that fans of Sonic will get a kick out of it. That's all I have for you guys right now. Subscribe in order to stay up to date with all things Sonic, and check out this video here for more lore. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought of Sonic Prime Season 3, and as always, I wish you all the best, take care, peace.